Gaming industry in 2025 will be better or worse than 2024? Everybody, this is Alessandro, welcome back to my channel. So you guys probably know that in 2024 and the last couple of years, there's been a lot of layoff, right, in the gaming industry. A lot of very shaky times, right, it's very difficult times for everybody. But what everybody's wondering right now is like how things are gonna be moving forward this year in the next couple of years, right? And I wanna discuss with you something different because what we've been seeing before was a huge number of layoffs, but I think what we're gonna see in the future, and I hope I'm wrong, but we need to be careful about it, is not layoff anymore, but entire company shutting down. And this is something we've already been seeing at the end of 2024, and this is something we need to be very aware of it because it will impact us, obviously, right? Obviously, it will be even worse than layoff. But let me roll back for a second, and you know, guys, that layoff mostly happened because COVID ended, right? So during COVID, company needed to hire a lot of people for the demand of digital companies, so they overhired. When COVID was over, company didn't need as many people anymore, they lay off. On top of that, there was inflation, interest rate from the banks increased, so company couldn't expand as much anymore, or they couldn't just stay on the same size, they have to contract even more, right? So those more or less, I summarize a little bit, but those were some of the reasons for the layoff. But now what is happening, it's something completely different in my opinion. We are just seeing that, this is again, it's happening for the last few years already, companies that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars for games that nobody wants. And then when the games get released, like only a few thousand people are buying it. And guess what? This is a financial disaster. And when this happens, it's not about layoff anymore. It's about an entire company shutting down. And again, this is something we've been witnesses. I don't have to tell you the name, guys, but you know that there's been some project that has been spending 300, 400 millions of dollars in development for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and then they're doing very, very badly. But for me, the thing that is very concerning, because you know this is normal in any business. For me, what is very concerning is that during those years when those companies show off trailers, news, and stuff like that, game community was very vocal about it. So one of the things that nobody can deny about our community, that you like it or not, that people are very passionate and very vocal, right? And they were very vocal about it. They didn't like those products, even like 3-4 years before they were released, right? They were expressing their concern over forum, Reddit, YouTube, downvote, stuff like that, you name it, right? But the reaction from the company was like, oh, come on, screw them, this is just a very small negative community, don't listen to them. Guys, if you don't like it, don't buy our games. They were very negative, reply negativity with negativity, which in my opinion is very, very wrong, because you have a community telling you something and you're playing deaf, you're not listening. Well, turns out that apparently that community was very vocal. It wasn't that small, because then when the game was released, only a few thousand people play it. And that's a tragedy for a game that's been in development for 3, 4 to 5 years, right? And that's for me is a big concern when companies don't want to listen. Because one of the things about being good about community being vocal is that you should understand what's not working and you should fix it. And some companies, they do it. Some companies, when the community is very vocal, they change it, they modify things to address certain issue. Other companies, again, they're playing deaf. And this is, for me, a really terrible attitude. And another thing is that even after they release a game that is not doing very well, rather than recognizing that didn't do very well, they made a mistake, let's try to go backwards and revisit their plan. They're like, no, we are doubling down on this one. Like, we failed with a live service, we're gonna continue to invest in live service. Microtransaction, we're gonna continue to invest in those things. And so again, even the company is voting with their wallet, rather than listening, they just continue to go in that direction. That's, for me, is very concerning. First of all, because we already see the result, as I mentioned, some entire company already shutting down certain studios, right? And if that's their attitude, things will continue to go in that direction, because it's very obvious that they're not interested to make a good game anymore. They want to chase trends, chase profit, political agenda, you name it. Okay, guys, we've been discussed many, many times. Even at the Video Games Award has been discussed. And for me, this is something we need to be very careful, because at the end of the day, we are the one getting screwed about this, right? Because we have the people working on the floor, right? And when company makes decision like this, we have no power. We cannot make any decision, just working for them. But again, when a company shut down, we are the one ending up on the street, right? So my biggest recommendation here, guys, you need to be very aware of who are you working for. If you see you're working for a company, it doesn't care about making a good product. They don't want to make games with passion. They're not making games for player. You should start looking for another job. Okay, when you see a company is doing very, very bad because again the product might not be fun, they're ignoring feedback, stuff like that, you need to start to look around, because or else will be too late. Because if you wait until you get laid off, and then another 500 people when the shut down is in the same position as you are, and that is a terrible moment to look for a job, because a lot of other people in the same position as you are looking for a job in the same area. So you are against the odds, right? Against the number, you know what I mean? So you better be aware of it, always keeping an eye. I understand that when you work in a job after a few years, you get very comfortable, you get very relaxed, you don't want to start to apply for a new job, you don't want to do interview because it's been very stressful, right? But again, if you don't do it and you realize that the situation might not be the best, you are going to be in big trouble later. And I learned this lesson myself in my first job. Okay, I was working for a company, my first game company, all right? And after a few years, I realized that in terms of gameplay, this project wasn't going anywhere. Graphics was amazing, but in terms of gameplay, we have no vision or anything, right? And when I raised this concern to my more senior colleague, they were like, come on, Alessandro, this is how gaming industry works, right? You're just being too negative. I was like, you know what, maybe they're right. I'm not just a junior. I should just listen to the most senior people that know better than me, right? Well, it turns out that my gut feeling were all right, because at the end of it, the senior company who lending us money for this project, they realized we were not making any progress, so they cut all the funds, they lay off 80% of the people. Luckily, I was safe, but a lot of other people, they were not, and they were in trouble. And so from that lesson, I learned that probably my trust, and as a gamer, I have a good vision when it comes to this. I can recognize when a game is not going to the right direction, or a project in general. And now this kind of attitude saved me a few times, because when I was in a company, I realized the project wasn't going anywhere, and there's nothing I can do to make the company change, because as animator, there's basically nothing you can do. But better move to someone else. And all this again saved me a few times, because I can guarantee you, 6 months, 1 year later, where I found a better job, the company will always face massive layoff or shut down entirely the studio. And sometimes I was even able to see this one during an interview by asking the right question, right? So I would recommend you guys to not just focus on your work and everything. I understand you want to focus on your craft and art, but you need to be smart about it to look around, or else you might be in trouble later, and that's something that we don't want. Of course, guys, I hope I'm wrong. Everybody hope that the gaming industry continue to grow forever, blah blah blah, everybody's successful, everybody's releasing games that makes millions of dollars, blah blah blah. But we know realistically it's not the case, right? It's always a few companies that are very successful, the other one that can stay afloat, and a lot of them fails, unfortunately. So you need to keep your eyes open to always be aware of your surrounding. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment. Ciao.